standing up for the ordinary Ghanaian who is not a lawyer and who has been made to feel that when the courts make pronouncements, it is beyond the comprehension of many of us who maybe unfortunately haven't been to law school. So we are not expected to even see common sense in the judgment. We are supposed to just swallow it and believe that that is the new law, or that is a good reasoning. I've had cause to be worried about a number of pronouncements from the Supreme Court of late. I mean, one of them which I still have and which I attempted asking about is what constitutes, contempt. I say this using the Muntie 3 versus Honorable Kennedy Ejapong and others, and the way those cases were treated and the kind of punishment that were meted out, it just didn't make sense to me as to whether there's a template or there's a code or there's an understanding under which we can measure what a contempt is. So I, as an ordinary person, when I'm speaking relative to the Supreme Court, I know these are my boundaries. So I sought to ask questions for clarification. Once again, the answers were nebulous. It never came clear. And that is why I suggested that since she's a scholar, the Supreme Court nominee is known to be a scholar, whether she would help the court to develop a code that we can all understand. Because indeed, even Parliament, has the part of the Constitution that says people should not denigrate Parliament. But Parliament went further to develop our own standing orders as to the process or how somebody gets cited for contempt. But the courts don't seem to have that, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm happy that she offered to look into how the court can develop a code or a template to draw the boundaries of contempt. If that is done, I am sure it would educate and help many of us who are not lawyers. With the second concern I had with the birth certificate, I just listened to you reading the judgment. Basically, the day that judgment was read, it basically made almost majority of Ghanaians non-Ghanaians to start with, until you can prove otherwise. And as we speak, there's nothing in this country that can prove you are a Ghanaian, because the so-called Ghana card they are talking about, in any case, it's called ECOWAS card. The items or the provisions on that form are, in fact, some of them are less than what you need to acquire a birth certificate. I was so shocked that all I wanted, when I wanted to just find out the reasoning behind that ruling, I have every respect for the Supreme Court and the institutions of state. I firmly believe that we must all protect and advance the sanctity of those institutions, Parliament, the executive, every institution, even the District Assembly. But I am a bit concerned that of late, the Supreme Court is unable to provide reasons for ordinary people to understand the reasoning behind the things they do. And rather, they tend sometimes, in my view, I may be wrong, and forgive me if I'm wrong, they turn themselves into something that if I question or something they do which doesn't make sense to me and I question it, I must be careful the words I use to question their reasoning. They are more concerned about the words I use to question their reasoning rather than the substance of my concern. With regards to the birth certificate, it is quite clear that part of the answer she gave, with all due respect and maybe want of better words, were untruths. Why do I say this? Part of her explanation, she said that, as you read, there's nothing about birth certificate that confirms somebody's identity, somebody's nationality. Sorry to say, my ladyship, that is not true. What you said was not true, I wouldn't say it's a lie, not true. Why? And she went further. For instance, to say that assuming a foreigner gives birth in Ghana, and the foreigner, the birth certificate would have been issued in Ghana, but that doesn't make the bearer of the certificate, that child, a Ghanaian. Well, she got that one also wrong, because if an American came and gave birth at Ridge Hospital, in the processing of the Form A, there are two portions where the mother would have to declare her nationality. So if the mother is an American, it will be written there as an American. If the father is an American, it will be written there as an American. In the certificate that will be issued, it will never be written on that certificate Ghanaian. It will be written American, because that person was born to a non-Ghanaian parent. So I don't know how the respected justice got herself entangled into this totally needless situation. And indeed, if you take that from A, you will see clearly, until you declare that your mother and your father are Ghanaian, you will not be able to get a certificate that bears a nationality Ghanaian. And indeed, if you take the face of a standard, birth certificate today, including your own, you will see nationality Ghanaian. So if you say that a birth certificate does not have all the ingredients to prove anybody's nationality, I say the Supreme Court got it totally wrong, and what they came to say in Parliament is not true, and maybe they need to backtrack. I don't know the processes, if they can actually just correct themselves, because that is the Supreme Court. They can only do things by, I'm told, a judicial review. But it is critical that the country shouldn't let this thing stay the way it is. We must correct this, because it is the biggest miscarriage of justice I've ever seen in my lifetime. The biggest. Because basically having Supreme Court justices, that means the cream of them, sitting there, and this is said to me, an ordinary person, and I said, look, you can see that the birth certificate bears the details of everything that proves the bearer is a Ghanaian. If the bearer is not a Ghanaian, it will never be said to be a Ghanaian. So, I mean, we were just trying to find out the reasoning behind these things. And sadly, it appears that all the things I asked about, so that the ordinary Ghanaian knows that indeed, if you have a birth certificate, it is actually proof, a birth certificate that bears nationality Ghanaian, it is actually proof that you are Ghanaian. No institution of this state, not even the president, can question your nationality based on your birth certificate if your birth certificate says Ghanaian. Indeed, go to the website of Ministry of Foreign Affairs this morning. Acquisition of passports, new applicants. You will see the first item is birth certificate, and they put it into quotation commas, proof of nationality. So how come the Supreme Court got it so wrong? And I'm saying that we shouldn't just say that they are we call them lords, we call them these, they are the most reasonable people, they know what they are doing, it's about the law. I'm sorry, this ruling has nothing to do with any law. If they got it wrong, I get things wrong sometimes. The president gets things wrong. Speaker can get things wrong. My mother and my father get things wrong. They've got this one wrong. They should backtrack and correct this, because indeed, a Ghanaian birth certificate is a proof that you are Ghanaian and must stand so. So all these machinations, simply because of the creation of a voters register and other things, to pretend that my passport, my birth certificate is worthless. No. The 5 or 7 or 9 Supreme Court judges who made this decision cannot be wiser than the 30 million Ghanaians. And I'm saying this with all due respect, because I feel on this occasion it is not about law, it's about common sense, it's about facts, and they got this totally wrong, and they must backtrack. And as a country, we must not let this thing just say that, oh, they've given the ruling already. It should stay the same, because basically it made me have to question. I mean, if I don't have a Ghana card today and I have my passport and then my birth certificate, it basically says that I cannot prove I'm Ghanaian. In any case, that is why I said I don't have my birth certificate in the room there to prove I'm a Ghanaian. And she said she's got hers. And I said, okay, good. If you got yours, go and bring it, simply because I wanted to prove to her on her birth certificate the nationality, her nationality is well spelled out on it. And I will ask her whether the nationality Ghanaian that is written on her birth certificate, whether it is false or whether she thinks that that information is a wrong information. Unfortunately, the mood of the room was, don't say that she should go and bring her birth certificate. But if we were to insist that she brings her birth certificate, it would have been another proof that the decision they made was totally wrong. I have every respect for the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court justices. I don't know any of them personally to say that they have wronged me in any way, and I don't set out to denigrate them. I want every Ghanaian to respect the Supreme Court judges or the judges and the court, but on this occasion, they got it totally wrong, and the only way they can get our respect back is to backtrack and correct this huge miscarriage of justice. I don't think there can be a miscarriage of justice in our recent time than that particular ruling. That is the biggest miscarriage of justice as far as I'm concerned, which is perpetuated against almost all the 30 million people of this country.
I'm sure you've gone back and listened to your banter with her, and you would have heard some of your colleagues who are even lawyers virtually expressing surprise at the question you're asking, and maybe suggesting sort of that perhaps you do not understand how law works. She even said she was doing legal deduction. What do you make of the responses she gave to you and the manner in which she gave those responses?
Well, I've already started by saying that to an extent, it's as if lawyers, remember I asked the question as to whether people are ordinary until they are appointed to the Supreme Court. Then we all pretend that they've become the wisest people on earth. But meanwhile, a few days before they were appointed, they were our cousins, our schoolmates, and other things. I was trying to find out whether the Supreme Court judges themselves see themselves as people who are fallible. Now, when she says she's doing legal deductions, I'm sorry to say this, Your Ladyship. Which legal deductions are you talking about? You hold a birth certificate that says you are Ghanaian, and you believe so, and rightly so, that the information provided and you are holding. In any case, if I had my way, I would have said that she should come and prove her nationality before we approve her, simply because I want to see which documents she's going to use to prove her nationality. I would have loved to do that, but I don't have that power within my means. So the fact that she says that she's doing deductions within the law, show me which law she's using to do the deduction. I've not been to law school, but that doesn't stop me from being a reasonable person. Indeed, when I get to the traffic light this morning and the light goes red, the light goes green for me, and I see a child and a mother crossing. Well, the law says if the light goes green for me, I should go, right? But I should be reasonable that once I saw somebody still in harm's way, the fact that I have the right to continue my journey and knock them down doesn't make sense. I have to stop and let them cross. The fact that the Supreme Court judge knows a part of the law, which I don't know, and I am not a lawyer, but I have a constitution. I want to know which part of the constitution she's referring to when she says she's doing legal deduction. And I'm saying that unless she's saying that the registry of birth and death, the information they have is bogus. And if that is the case, then we are all in trouble. It's saying that when the Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually requires that you provide birth certificate to prove your nationality before you get a Ghanaian passport that is respected internationally, that information is wrong. And then she should go ahead and tell us how we should prove our citizenship as a country. I am not aware of any country in this world where a birth certificate is not a proof of nationality. It's a novelty that Supreme Court judges in Ghana would sought to create that impression. Not even in Afghanistan, not even in Iraq, is birth certificate not a proof of your nationality. How on earth did we drive ourselves into this? I don't want to say it's politically motivated, but I feel whatever it is, that particular ruling is the biggest miscarriage of justice in this country in our lifetime and must not be made to stay. I'm looking for a day where this huge miscarriage of justice will be reversed, because it is not based on any law, it is not based on anything. but based on maybe, I'm sorry. In fact, I asked a question whether to describe a ruling of a Supreme Court as an unwise decision was right. And she said, yes, you can describe a decision of a Supreme Court as an unwise and it will be acceptable. I think that decision was an unwise decision. And those who took those decisions have the opportunity to backtrack and correct themselves.
And I guess you have also realized that you've been trending for a while. That those 3 minutes have been on social media, people circulating it, people commenting on it. Are you getting some feedback based on the questions you've asked from even people who are lawyers trying to either agree with you or disagree with you, or your constituents who also agree with you on this matter?
Well, I think this matter is not even about NDC, NPP, Ghanaian, Togolese. It just goes to the heart of who we are as a people. And I am not surprised that it's generating this level, because before I asked the question, I said my questions are not based on law. My questions are based on public interest. The issue about contempt, I am sure, including yourself, when you want to make comments relative to the Supreme Court today, you want to know where are your boundaries. I have seen members of parliament, speakers, presidents describe rulings of Supreme Court in America and in very, very critical languages and other things. Nobody turns up in court in terms of contempt. And I think that the court, instead of scaring the citizens to respect them, they should rather do things that automatically end our respect, because respect is not sold in the shop. I should be able to say that the reasoning behind various rulings are so good that I believe in the outcome of those judgments, which everybody must follow. But when time and again, it's as if the rulings are so wrong, commonsensically, and then we are told that because you are not a lawyer, you will not understand. I don't get it. Do you need to be a lawyer to understand that we have enough information to prove that a birth certificate issued by births and deaths in this country is a summary proof of your nationality or not? And if you are not a Ghanaian, they will never issue you a birth certificate that says you are a Ghanaian. If they feel that people have been acquiring birth certificates wrongly who are not Ghanaian, then you correct the process. You don't criminalize or you don't make useless those who have acquired birth certificates genuinely. So the attention is generating. It's not about me. It's about people actually responding to what is already in their mind. They've been questioning, but they don't have the avenue to question them. A good opportunity came in Parliament, and I'm just one of those people. There could be millions of people who are not happy about that ruling, but do not have the platform. Maybe they go and write on social media, then they come after them. They come and speak on your radio, questioning it. They come and speak they come and attack them. At least I did not insult them. But we had an opportunity when the cream of the justices of the Supreme Court assembled in Parliament in support of one of their own to become a Supreme Court judge, and we have the opportunity on behalf of the people of this country to ask those questions. And I am totally not satisfied with the answer she gave relative to those two questions. I think she just danced around it, pretending that they will just wake up and go and say, oh, Lord, he's an architect, he doesn't understand law and other thing. And I'm saying that not every law is law that is too difficult for anybody to understand. At least I did a bit of reasoning as an architect in terms of my training. And I don't even think that the farmer going to a farm in Adaklu today has no sense of fairness or common sense. They also have, yes, judges are judges. They understand the law better than I do and many do. But in the process of explaining these things, they must know that other people can see whether what you're saying is reasonable or not. This particular issue of the birth certificate is a wrong decision. The Supreme Court must find a way of correcting it. Or at least, in our lifetime, this miscarriage, I call it the biggest miscarriage of justice in our lifetime, must be corrected.
Well, before I let you go, I would just like to draw attention to one thing because of your position as the whip. I'm looking at the Daily Guide this morning. Minority no vote on Tokono immaterial. That is the chairman of your committee responding to your decision not to participate in the approval? Or exactly what happened, and do you agree with him when he say whatever decision you've taken is immaterial?
Well, the chairman, a respected legislator, and the first deputy speaker had his views on this, and in the release I signed, we brought to their attention our concern about Honorable Jache's question in terms of the fact that the Supreme Court have given a ruling without giving us the reasoning behind the ruling. We needed the details of that to also assess the capacity of the nominee to make decisions which can be life and death. In fact, you should know that these justices can determine your life or death one day if it becomes necessary. And you should be able to believe that whatever decision they make is based on sound judgment. Now, the first deputy speaker was of the view that since we said we did not have much issues apart from the issues we raised, he thinks we should just go ahead and approve it. And we say that this is not the first time. Senna, even at ordinary committee meetings, we do review, we do invite institutions, and then we interview them or we interrogate them. And for instance, finance committee, they come, they say they want a loan. We go through and we say, look, what about this? Where is the evidence of this? They say we don't have it. We said, okay, we have listened to you, but go and bring evidence of that particular document or information before we make a decision on you. We are okay with what you said, but until you bring us this particular information, which should be material to our decision, we are not going to make a decision. We do that all the time. So it is nothing new. When we vet people, we say, bring additional information. Like I'm saying, if I have my way, we should bring her back. And when she's coming, she should bring proof of her nationality. And we would like to see how she will prove she's a Ghanaian. So when we say go and bring the reasoning behind the ruling against Honorable Jache's question, I think it's a fair thing to say. In any case, Parliament resumes on the 6th. We are told the ruling of the court will be on the 7th. So we were very, very reasonable by saying that on the 7th, bring this information, and then we can interrogate it and see whether it is okay, and then we can give her the go-ahead to go through. So there was no entrenched position from the minority. It is the first deputy speaker, unfortunately, who is probably making this look as if there's an entrenched position. Indeed, we did not take a vote as to whether we want to support or disapprove of her. So if he writes a report and makes it a majority decision, that is entirely his own decision. That decision wouldn't have been a decision of the committee, because at the committee level, we did not take a vote. So if we go to the House and he goes ahead to prepare a report and makes it a majority decision, that would have been a unilateral decision taken by himself.
So as far as you're concerned, you're still waiting for that decision from the courts?
Yes. And I think it's a very reasonable thing, because of that, we couldn't even question her on the question. That it's a very important thing for members of Parliament, because if Supreme Court can give a ruling and then take me out of Parliament without giving me reasons why they are taking me out, shouldn't I be concerned? If a Supreme Court can give a ruling on any matter, including any member of the public, without giving reason, I'm told it's a normal thing they do. They rule and they take a long time to give reasoning. But I think it's quite a practice that we should try to correct as well. Because when you give a ruling on a very sensitive matter that can throw the public into chaos, and it takes you weeks before you come up with the reasoning. What if by the time you come up with the reasoning, people have taken the law into their own hands and have misbehaved? I'm not saying that is right. So the distance between the ruling and the provision of the reasoning behind the ruling should be narrowed down significantly so that we can all be on the same page with our respected judges. That's all we are calling for. So as far as we are concerned, we are waiting for what do you call it, the reasoning behind the ruling. I can understand that based on certain antecedents on the floor recently, the first deputy speaker would have been thinking that, oh, call their bluff. We'll send the majority decision to the floor. If they like, they should bring their people to come and vote against it. Well, I would just caution him to be cautious about that line of thinking. It might not, we don't need to go that far, but I think we should all be cautious going towards that place where instead of us having consensus, people are saying, oh, we can get the votes, so let's do majority decision report. I have no power to stop anybody from producing a decision made based on the majority. But I wish we could have a decision which is a unanimous decision, simply because we are only looking for one thing. And that's which we are looking for is not too difficult to get. That can be provided just on the 7th, and that can actually basically solve the problem, and we all move forward and make sure that we have the full complement of the Supreme Court to continue giving us reasonable justice.
Confirm or deny this for me. Is it true initially you did not want to participate, but you participated on the condition that you have a second go at her if the decision comes out?
We had a lot of discussion on this issue. We are very much aware that the respected justice was vetted just in 2019 for her to go to the Supreme Court. So we are only looking for details between 2019 and now. So our view is that if we don't get much from 2019 till now, what we would have been doing is to do a repeat of the vetting that she went through in 2019, which is not fair to Ghanaians, it's not fair to ourselves. So we made it a point that we will necessarily need to have more details of her conduct, her reasoning, the cases she's been involved in between 2019 and now. At no point did we say we are not going to participate in the vetting. But as explained in our release the day after the day of the vetting, we did approach our colleagues before the vetting, stating clearly to them the concerns we have and the things we want considered in terms of vetting and approving the respected justice.
Honorable, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much. But I hope, and I want to thank you and your team for a great job. You are not doing this for NDC or Kwame Agbodza. I'm saying that today, when you are holding a Ghanaian birth certificate, be proud that you are holding evidence of your citizenship. We don't need the Supreme Court to do this to us by pretending that a birth certificate, by law, don't forget that the registry of birth and death is also a creation of the law. And if they say I am a Ghanaian, I don't think anybody on this earth should be able to, in his or her own wisdom, tell me that I am not a Ghanaian because he or she thinks so. Because the law says the birth certificate I hold says I'm a Ghanaian. The Minister of Foreign Affairs says before I acquire a Ghanaian passport, which will prove when I get to Togo, when I get to London, UK, that I'm a Ghanaian, as a first-time person, I should bring proof of my birth certificate. And I'm sure this morning, Ghanaians will be acquiring new birth certificates today, and then they'll be taking that to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the passport office, to acquire their passport. How on earth can somebody say all these processes are illegitimate simply because he or she thinks and gives a very nebulous and unreasoned judgment that the birth certificate is not? And I'm saying they got it totally wrong. Let them backtrack and correct it, even if they will not. In our lifetime, I hope one day this huge miscarriage of justice, the biggest I've ever seen in our lifetime, will be corrected.
Honorable, thank you very much. Honorable Kwame Agbodza is Minority Chief Whip, Member of Parliament for